women make up a large percentage of the buying population. But often marketing is not really specifically directed to them, or it's done in a way that's not engaging them. And so as a leader, if you're in charge of marketing for your organization, your company, or you're trying to attract women to work in your company, how should you market to them with the right message? Well, I brought Katie Mayers, and she is the author of the new book, CustomHER Experience. I love the title. And she's going to share her journey as a brand specialist, why she pivoted to focus on this large market that is usually underserved in marketing. She gives some great tactical strategies that you can employ, that you can help your company really connect with the female shopper. So let's dive into today's episode of You're in Charge, Now What? With Katie Mayers. All right, Katie. So I am so excited that you're here. We are back on a schedule now for podcasting for the You're in Charge podcast, and Katie is with me. I've always been a big fan. We met years ago, and I've been following your career and your path, and we'll get into your personal journey of the, as you said on your book, the Brady Bunch. But Katie, as I said, this book, CustomHER Experience, one, I love the title. But I really like the book, and I think that it addresses an area that is needed, is taken for granted. And as a marketer, it reminded me of a few things that maybe we need to take a step back and make sure we're doing that. So at a very high level, explain to the audience why this book is so important and what was the genesis? What caused you to go, I think I need to write this book?
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, we're nothing without our customers, right? So no business can thrive, no business can succeed. You can't have, a roof over your head, lights on, food on the table. Johnny can't go to soccer without customers. So I've just been my entire career focused on creating magical moments and helping companies create magical moments for their customers. Now, unfortunately, in the automotive space, this is something that lacks a little luster and a lot of love. And I went out to purchase a vehicle. Not my husband at the time, but me. And I was just met with, obstacle after obstacle. And those obstacles were sales associates. I couldn't give my money away because I would just get the, gosh, sometimes I got, does your dad need to be here? Are you, I'd go out in my Uggs and my hair in a bun and no makeup. And apparently I don't look even old enough to purchase a vehicle. I don't know. So, is your dad coming? Do you have enough money? Is your husband around? When I'd walk in with my kids, the sales associates they just panic would wash over them because they didn't want to have to deal with me and children in a car and have to rally everyone up. And so it took me 7 dealerships in a few months before I was able to hand over, my $50,000-$60,000 for my vehicle. And I had a hefty budget. It wasn't like I wasn't looking for I was looking for brand name. Funny enough, I ended up with a Hyundai. Not because there's anything wrong with Hyundais. I think they're great, but I wanted the BMW. I wanted the Lexus. I wanted the brand.
Right.
But they gave me the experience. And so I ended up there, and what ended up happening for me is I went down this rabbit hole, not just from a customer experience standpoint, but I really realized that there's this niche called the female consumer, and she holds a ton of influence. And we actually influence $43 trillion of worldwide spending.
Right.
And I thought to myself, I need to get this message out there. We're overlooking the largest and most influential customer segment. And so I started researching, I started playing around with it, like with my customers, with my own clients. And I started developing articles, which then, snowballed because I just kept writing, just kept researching. And I thought, okay, a book.
Right.
And that's what I did. I took all my knowledge and put it together and with a little bow in the form of a book.
Okay, so a couple things I want to unpack out of that, because you said something and I want to make sure the audience heard that, because you talked about two different things. You talked about I wanted the brand, right? Whatever the brand is. And this is
Yep.
not just automotive. This was your experience in automotive, but we could turn around and pick any type of business and say, okay, so you're pushing out a brand. And in this case, you mentioned BMW, Lexus, so you're talking luxury, high
Yes.
end. And if we're looking at the advertising that we're getting, we're talking about this luxurious and a certain type of a person, and, all the images we're seeing, and we would expect when I walk in there that experience happens. So now we're talking brand, we're talking experience. So we're talking brand experience at one level, and then we're talking about customer experience, or the execution of actions that will deliver
Yeah.
this experience. And it seems like there was a disconnect potentially, where if a man walked in, from your experience, what you walked away with, I would assume, saying, if you're asking me where my husband is, or you're asking me where my father is, they get the experience, but I
Yeah.
don't. Right.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
so it sounds like and from reading this book, what I took away from it was, you have to start thinking through how to create that experience within the brand.
Mm-hmm.
But men and women experience things differently, need different things to help them through. Am I on the right path?
For sure. So men and women do, I mean, we're physiologically built differently. Like our brains are wired, the whole men are from Mars and women are from Venus. It's a thing. Like we're just wired differently. Our brains are built differently. And so yes, I always urge, organizations to cast their experience net wide enough to capture the female consumer, to capture her attention, to create those relationships, to provide her that hedonic experience that she wants and needs. Because at the end of the day, the man, it's not going to bother him. He was going to walk in, he's going to walk out, he knows what he wants. It's very utilitarian. But if you only have a utilitarian experience, you're losing out on that powerful customer segmentation, being the female consumer. So
So, so,
yes, they,
so, so sorry to interrupt, but you said a word, hedonic or hedonistic, when I
yes.
was reading that, and I had my on my list, because I wanted to explore that a little bit in terms of, what do you mean creating that hedonic experience or hedonistic experience for the female? Because as you said, I'm spreading this net wide. Men come in, give me the, linear potentially. What do you mean? Give me some examples, so someone goes, I have no idea what she's talking about,
Yeah.
or I want to do this. How do I do this? Give me some examples.
Yeah, so a hedonic experience is just an experience of the senses. So it means that she is paying attention to the temperature of, your brick and mortar store, the lighting in your brick and mortar store, the smell of your brick and mortar store, the tonality and the words used by your sales associate. She's the magazines you have, the washroom experience. So what for her, it's a sense, an experience of the senses. So everything has to feel good within her whole self in order for it to pique her interest. So an example would be lighting. Like, is it fluorescent? Especially in the washroom, the female washroom. Is it top down fluorescent lighting where she sees all the bags under her eyes and she goes into the washroom, walks out of the washroom feeling worse about herself than when she walked into the
Right,
bathroom?
right.
The soft towels, like how it feels on your skin. Like, is it brown paper, or do you have a better, higher quality paper towel that feels nice? The smell of the soap, the smell of the washroom, the smell of the dealership, all of those things impact how she perceives her experience. On the flip side, most men, and I'm not saying all men, but most men could care less. They go into the bathroom, they do their business, they walk out, and they buy, they purchase a vehicle, or they purchase what they're there to purchase. It doesn't impact the end result for them. Women have to feel good when making their purchasing decision, and that's because our limbic brain is double the size of a man. So we think at greater length. We feel far more deeply, and we remember details. Like even our hippocampus is our memory hub of our brain.
Mhm.
We remember details for far longer than a man. So she,
Oh yeah.
if you have like a wife, a daughter, sister, mother, I mean, a woman in your life that you've had some sort of disagreement with, or
You remember
some sort of,
everything. Oh my
yeah,
goodness. Oh my goodness. But that's
right.
an interesting thing because what triggered in my head was conversations when my father retired. Um, and he'd want to go shopping with my mother. She pulled me aside one time. She says, "You got to talk to your father." I said, "What's going on?" "I don't want him to go shopping with me because he ruins the experience." I said, "Well,
Uh-huh.
what do you mean?" He says, "Well, we have a list. You wanted to go buy, let's say, a sweater. Well, why are you looking at pants if you want to buy a sweater? And why are you looking at coats? And why are you looking?" And she goes, "I like to walk through and see
Mhm.
things. And even if I'm not buying it, that's relaxing to me. And it puts me in a state of mind that when I'm looking at something, he's afraid I'm going to buy more things." And she goes, "In reality, I'm not, but she said, I'm sensing the place of if I want to do business here by
Yeah.
seeing everything where he is, go in, get it, get out." And so I really like that because I think department stores back in the day, they've changed a little bit, but back in the day, they did a really good job of that, of going in and having the plush couches or the lighting or just the smells, and everything just felt good about going into this. Like it was, to your point, it was an experience to go shopping versus tactical shopping.
Right. And retail therapy is a thing. I mean, every man who has a wife or a daughter, just let her go. It doesn't mean she's going to spend a ton, but the same, so that journey, that shopping experience for her,
Mm-hmm.
she has releases of dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin coursing through her body. And what that does, it does relax her. It does make her happy. It makes her feel connected. She can go have conversations. It is literally the same physiological reaction when she's shopping, when she's going to do retail therapy, she has when she's
Right.
falling in love. Like it's the same chemical reactions. It's the body feels the exact same way. So for her, it is the experience, it's the journey, it's the chase, it's not the purchase. So any the purchase,
So is that
like,
environment? So what you're saying, so again, something popped in my head when you said that, is that creating a sense of trust so that
oh
when you
yes.
purchase, right? Because my wife always talks about that, is trust is very important to her, be it a person, being it a business, trust is, and I'm wondering if that's part of what we may be taking for granted is, well, I have the product and it's a nice environment, but you're not thinking as a woman thinks to create that experience that builds trust in you. And the fact that you have flowers and a nice smell and whatever it is, that's as important to build that trust is as having the product.
Oh, correct. So like price and product mean nothing. Like not that they mean nothing, but you can go on Google and you can find that same product at a cheaper price, at a more expensive price.
Mhm.
I mean, it's said, 7 to 10 different retailers. Like I talk about, I'm working with the spa salon, and I looked at them and I said, well, if you threw a rock down your street, how many spas or how many salons would it hit? They're like, I don't know, 20. I'm like, great. So what's the difference? I mean, you all are stylists, you all went to school, your prices are relatively the same, the outcome of the product is relatively the same. So what's different? Well, the atmosphere in which you provide, no one else is going to provide the same atmosphere as you, and the
Mhm.
people in which provide it, and the way you're able to create those relationships and earn that trust. That's the only differentiator. And that's with
Right.
every product. It's with every product today. You can go and compare vehicles. You can compare 20 of them at one time. You can go to an auto mall and literally just hop from store to store to store. Their product's the same. Every automaker, every OEM has a 3-row SUV. They have 2 or 3 of them.
Right.
So what is the differentiator? Why is she choosing you? It's not your vehicle. It's how you deliver an experience and how you earn her trust and you create that relationship. Your people and your atmosphere, your people provide, that's the delta. That's what she's choosing. She's not
Mm.
choosing your car. I didn't choose Hyundai because I wanted that brand. I didn't choose Hyundai because they had the only 3-row SUV for me to have. I chose them because they went on the journey with me, because they
Right.
respected me, because they played with my kids when I was trying out vehicles,
Right.
because I was able to trust them.
Right. And that so that brings me to, I'm pulling up my notes here because I always write things ahead of time. So then yeah, so I think we talked about it because my notes were falling in love with the experience, right? Which is
Mhm.
that sense of, when you meet someone and you it's the experience of being around them, right?
Yes.
And what gets you excited about being around them. And so how do we do that? Then this hedonic or hedonistic type of atmosphere. So two things I want to get into here, because one, and I think it'll tie in well with, because people are listening and say, yes, I agree. Got it.
Yes. Hmm.
Now, you may have salespeople, men and women, who are like, yeah, I guess we have to figure this out, or my company does do a good job, or maybe they don't. I don't know. So they're going to say, how should they do this? So first, I'm going to say, go get this book on Amazon because
Yes.
it'll help you. There's no, what I really do, I told you earlier, before we jumped on, what I really liked about the book is it's very tactical. There's a lot of, here's some checklists, here's things. And one of the things that you pointed out was this idea of life stages. Like,
Hmm.
where is this person in what stage? But so I want you to talk about that. But then, okay, well, once you do this, like, how am I building out this checklist or structure so that someone who's listening says this all makes complete sense? What are a couple things that I now can do to either inspect what I'm doing to see if I'm on the right path or not, or
Hmm.
what are some easy wins? But talk about that idea of life stages. That fascinated me.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're in marketing, you know how important it is to understand your customer, and anybody who serves a customer, which is everybody, should understand who their customer is. Here's the thing is that the regular way of going about making a consumer persona through demographic and through how much money they make and where they live and what car they drive and all those very easily captured data points, by the way, very easily captured data
Right.
points. It doesn't help you understand your customers' needs, fears, wants, desires, and then how you can solve for those. And with the female consumer, I mean, here it is. The 30s are the new 20s, 40s are the new 30s. Women aren't getting married right away, if at all. They aren't necessarily having kids in their 20s and 30s anymore. They may be having children in their 40s. And so, therefore, their life stage happens far differently. And by the way, every woman's different. So
Mhm.
you can't just say, oh, she's like, I'm 39. And if you had asked me when I was 29 that I'd have 7 children living in 2 countries and I, globetrot because I have to, I would laugh. I would laugh. There's no
Right.
way. But no one would look at me and think I have 7 kids, biological or not. So they'd make a judgment pass, right?
Right.
So
Right.
you
Exactly.
women like my sister, for example, I had my first babies when I was young. I was 26. I was, two babies at 26, another one before I was 30. But my sister is 34 and she just had her second baby. And then my ex-sister-in-law, for example, didn't have her first baby till she was 40. And so this life stage that each woman is at is different. And so understanding, that just because they're 30 doesn't mean they're married. It doesn't mean they could be career focused. They
Right.
could, they understanding that women aren't typically what we've designed them to be or sought out to put a label on them is just not
Mhm.
what they are anymore. So at 25, at 35, at 45, you can be a single woman. But as a single woman working on her career, her needs are very different than the woman who is now married, who could be 25, 35, or 45, or 55. Some people get married at 60, and they're just going from me to we. And then you've got the new parents where you're just going into having all of a sudden the decisions that they're going to make if they decide to have babies is far different. So you're going to have much more success understanding their needs, their wants, their desires, and how you solve for those things if you look at life stages. And then in order to uncover that with each of one of your customers, each one of the females that walks through the door, you have to get to know them a little. You have to create a relationship.
Right.
But once you've created these consumer personas, understanding the life stages of your female consumers, when they do come in, you know what questions to ask them, so you can slot them into a life stage and you think, oh, okay, this is how I need to sort of, these are the questions I should ask. These are probably some of the challenges she's having. And so you're able to better pivot and serve for her needs versus what you're assuming she needs.
Right. But I think, would I be wrong in saying, let's take a step higher above all of that, of just making the assumption right from the gate, like you started out with your story, is that just because a woman walks in, they're capable of buying, they're capable of making decisions,
Yes.
they're just capable, and we need to treat them that way. But we also have to understand is that the environment, if we're going to market to women, and women are going to be coming into our brick and mortar or engaging, or again, we're not even going to get into the website, but just let's talk brick and mortar, that you have to be cognizant that the environment is important to them as much as the product. Or again, same thing, you could be the nicest salesperson and I know your life stage and I can ask the right questions, but if it doesn't smell great or doesn't look great, you see what I'm saying? So
here it is.
It's this whole package.
It is an experience. One of my mentors, he gave me some of the best advice ever. There's never a ribbon cutting ceremony. You are never going to arrive when it comes to providing an experience, because people evolve, your business evolves, technology evolves. And so you're always having to look at that customer journey through time and constantly be able to pivot. If you miss one stage on that touch point, so if you've got your journey through time, it affects everything else. It's a domino effect.
Right.
And so there's no way you can provide an experience. It is a complete full circle. And so, yes, to your point, you've got to have it all going on. I mean, right. Ritz-Carlton isn't Ritz-Carlton because they screw up, right? Or they don't have embody the entire experience. Ritz-Carlton is Ritz-Carlton because they are completely intentional with everything they do, and they're completely buttoned up. And that's why they're able to provide that.
So, all right. Now we're on to the next part. So again, I want you use Ritz-Carlton, and I agree. Any of these top brands that we all go, oh, they have a great experience. They intentionally thought it through.
Yes.
They intentionally thought of the atmosphere. They intentionally thought of how to train their team to handle situations. And there's always an auditing factor. And so it's a constant circle of watching, coaching, training, development. Okay. Audience is sitting here going, this all sounds good, Glenn. Katie, give me 3 things that someone who's listening, if they're either owning their business, running their business, working in a business, and you would say, here's my CustomHER checklist. Here's 3 things that you could look at first to see if you're even on the right path. What would 3 things be?
1, do you even have an experience, a designed experience that your team executes? Period. Man or woman. Do you have a brand experience standards? Do you have a journey through time that you've been able to break down and have standards that are executed consistently with every customer every time? Because if you do not have that foundation, then please put my book on a shelf for a minute. Go read a customer experience book. Go read something by Disney. Figure out how you can create that experience for your customers. So that foundation has to be there. So number 1, the foundation has to be there. Because that foundation is there, number 2, I want you to take a look at each touch point on that journey and layer in 2, maybe 3 things that you can do at each touch point that will feel good for the woman. So whether that is
give me an example. What would be?
I'm going to go back to the washroom because it's the one that most men don't go to the female washroom. And in a lot of industries, It's male dominated. In a dealership, you're looking at, 85% men up front on the sales floor. Please tell me that one time they've gone into the women's washroom to see what that experience is. Never. So the washroom is one touch point. A woman's going to go into the washroom at some point during her vehicle purchase. The lighting, the soap, the smell. Is there a chair in there if there's a woman that's going to come in and needs to breastfeed? Is there a full-length mirror? What's the music playing in the washroom? Just the washroom in itself is an experience. Second, I would, as part of that, have your women that are working for you walk through the dealership with you, walk through your brick and mortar with you, and have them point out what they see and what they'd want to do differently. When you walk through the doors, you've got to flip that lens and look through the eye of her. Look through her eyes. Is it fluorescent? Is it cold? Is it dirty? In the service lane, for example, in the waiting area, like usually the coffee pots are gross and it smells like burnt coffee and it looks like nobody's paid attention nor cares what the consumers are sitting in and waiting in for hours. Are the chairs comfortable? Are there rips in the chairs? Are we checking up with them on a regular basis and calling them by name? And are we creating that connection while they're waiting for their vehicle? Are we explaining things to them? And honestly, back to your point, the third one, if you do nothing else at all and you start here, this is what I would say, and this is to your point, Glenn, is assume she is able and capable to make a purchase. She is walking into your brick and mortar store for a reason. So whether or not she needs her dad or her husband, whether or not they're with her or not, you can assume she has a plan. You can assume she's got all of that figured out. So just treat her as if she's worthy of your time, because she's about to hand over, a large chunk of change. A car, a vehicle other than a home is like the second largest purchase anybody will make. Assume she's capable of that and she's able to do that. Just starting there would go a long, long way.
Wow. I really like that, because when I coach businesses, automotive and non-automotive, and we talk about that idea of a customer experience, I always say I work backwards. I start with, how do I want my customers to feel when they leave? And when I said that one time in a workshop, someone stopped me and said, you're the only person who's ever talked about how you want them to feel. Right? Because everybody worries about, well, are they happy with the purchase? I'm like, no, it's about how did they feel, whether they bought it or not. They could buy it and still feel horrible. Then it's working backwards. What does my team have to do? What actions do they have to do to make them feel that way? And then we build those actions into a process. Then we hire the right people to do that. Then we get technology to help them make it easy, right? And then we're training and everything. But it's that working backwards. And it's to your point of point one is there an intentionality? Is there a process for greeting customers or whatever, wherever it is, how we answer the phone, how we interact? If it's not documented with the thought that this is going to make them happy, make them feel good, then we got to adjust. And then that idea, which I think is just so simple and so smart, is ask the women who work for you.
Yeah.
And just say, if you could change anything, what would you change? And they'll probably have a laundry list of things that they want to do.
So you're going to do two things by doing that. One, you have your market research, so you don't have to go outside. You don't have to work super hard. Number two, you're going to start to earn trust with your female employees, and you're going to start to create a better culture for them. And they're going to think, wow, they really care. So I do caution you, though, if you're going to ask them, then you better be willing and able to make those changes, because otherwise you're just going to end up losing trust. So make sure that when you do that, don't blow hot air, don't blow smoke, because they will, I believe we have a zero balance trust account, employees or customers. And so if you put positive deposits into this trust account, you can screw up. I mean, listen, we're all human. It's going to happen. But then you stay above board, right? If you don't put those positive deposits in with action and accountability and doing what you're going to say, you're going to go into overdraft. And once you've gotten into overdraft, good luck earning that trust back.
Right,
So
right. You've lost it. You really have. And
yes,
it's hard to
customers
get
or
back. Mhm.
employees, both.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I do like that. And so leaders out there, listen to what Katie was saying. Is like if you're willing to embark on this, you have to be willing to potentially make changes. Doesn't mean you have to make all the changes right away at that time.
No.
But if I ask my employees what they think, what they feel, one, you have to be willing to at least entertain it and take it seriously. Two, if you're going to put it into a plan, give them feedback, because someone might have a great idea, but you can't implement it for 2 months. Keep them updated. Hey, Katie, remember when we talked about that? It's in play. I just didn't want you to think I forgot about it, but because of XYZ, it's not going to go into play until April. That's okay. They're kept up to date, that you, as you said, a positive deposit, that I took you seriously. I appreciate it. And then more importantly, celebrate it when it does go into play. Let people know, hey, it was Katie's idea. We really appreciate this. And that encourages other people to have ideas that you actually not just hear them, but you actually put it into place. So I really think this is really good, because again, at the beginning of the conversation, we have a tendency to always talk about, well, here's our sales process, or here's our experience, and here's this, but it seems to be very static, or it is rigid, because that's the way we've done it. And things have evolved, and we
Yes.
have to have experience, and you don't have to have, well, here's the waiting room for women and here's the waiting room for men. But at the same moment in time, there can be a balance, because as you said, most men are probably they'll notice it, but it's not important to them.
No, here it is. They'll enjoy it. They're gonna
Yeah.
it's not gonna bother them. It's not gonna it's not gonna
It's not going to be part of their
insult
decision
them, and they're
factor,
not gonna
yes or
walk
no.
away.
Right, right,
But if
right.
you don't build it for the females and you do just build it for men, the women will walk away. So in one case, you keep both customers.
Right.
In the latter case, you keep one customer. And here's the thing, women influence 86% of all household purchases. I mean, she's the world's economy. And
Mm-hmm.
so you can't afford to lose her. Like, you just can't. And
No, I
as
agree.
she grows in power, as she grows, she's, owning more businesses, she's making more money, she's out in the fields, she is going to earn more economic power as time goes, and money is power, and her spending power is increasing. So why not keep both customers by tailoring an experience for her? To me, it's a no-brainer in my opinion.
If, one last question on this, and then we'll move on to the next. But I remember my mother, and my grandmother especially, because she always shopped at certain places. And there was this sense of loyalty because of the experience, until you no longer gave them the experience, right? And so
Yeah.
I'm wondering, in your research or what you're seeing, is that if I get that experience, right? So going back to your story, where that Hyundai dealer is, it's almost as if that's my dealership until you're not
Yeah.
my dealership, because I'm loyal to the experience, right? And I think that's not just trust, it builds a sense of loyalty of, why would I go anywhere else? Because they understand me. Am I right on that assumption?
Correct, especially in something like a purchase, like a vehicle. I mean, I'm not going to go and weather the storm anywhere else. I'd rather just go where I feel safe and I feel comfortable and I feel that they've got my back, and I feel good about giving up $60,000 or $50,000.
But that
I
goes
want
with
that
hotel
feeling
chains. That goes with hotel chains and restaurants and department
everywhere.
stores, or wherever else you go, because one, you know what the experience is, or it's a reason why I guess we go back to, we always have a favorite restaurant. It's not just the food, it's really the experience around it, and why we bring people to it, because we already know, hey, we're going to have a good experience, until we don't.
Correct.
But if I've had multiple good ones, you're willing to give them, hey, everybody makes a mistake, whatever. But if I go back another time and the experience is starting to go down, now you go, well, you know what? Something's changed. Now I have to go out and look for something else.
Well, I tell this story in my book. I have, I mean, I was at the airport. I still travel a ton, but I used to travel a lot. And I had a driver almost in every city that I go to, because I just like that feeling of, I'm a woman traveling by myself. So I like that sort of
Mhm.
comfort. Well, in Toronto, I had a driver that, for not joking, 15 years, he was the one that picked me up, dropped me off. I didn't have to worry about a thing. And it was comfortable, and he would always bring little Werther's originals for my kids. So saying goodbye to my kids was so much easier, and they'd actually look forward to, his name was Riz.
Right.
The Riz is coming, so they get their little candies, and saying goodbye as a mom that's, often gone, it lessens the mommy guilt, and it makes them feel better. So once he sent another driver one time, because he's starting to grow, he's starting to have more drivers, and which is wonderful. I love it. But here's the thing: the driver was late. The driver didn't bring the candy. The driver, didn't even say hi to me, didn't even use my name. And so for the first time, I was like, "Lo, I've been using you for like 15 years. I'm going to give you a shot, right? You've earned that
Right.
trust." Well, then it happened another time, and then another. And one time, one of his drivers didn't even show up. So I was like, you know what, Uber, I mean, it's a third of the price, and I can
Right.
expect inconsistency, so it doesn't bother me so much. And finally, after 15 years of being loyal to this one brand, this one amazing driver, I switched businesses to Uber, because it was just, well, I can expect inconsistency from Uber, so I'm okay with it. But when you're paying a premium to have an experience and then it goes away, there's only so many times you can drop the ball on that. And so that trust went away, and I no longer refer him, and I no longer use him, and I still travel. So think about the amount of money this driver has lost because he tried to
Mm.
expand quickly and didn't provide a checklist and experience, and wasn't intentional with his clients. He cared more about the amount of rides he was giving than the clients he was giving them to.
That's a great point. That's a really solid point to sort of wrap this section up, because again, it is about retaining your current customers while you expand. But if he had given this new driver a list and said, okay, when you pick up Katie,
Exactly.
be on time, don't be late, bring Werther's candies for the kids, He had a checklist or a profile for you that
Yep.
person could execute on. It may not be the same because his personality might be a different, but at least you would have said, well, he didn't forget the candies. He was
Yeah.
on time.
Uh-huh.
And you're willing to do that. So that's a really good point, and a great place to wrap this conversation is, again, guys, the experience. You could have the best product in the world. We've all seen great products that disappear because the experience of doing business was not worth the product. Or
Yeah.
you bought the product one time and you were like, thank God that's over, and you
Yes.
went on to something else. So
Yeah.
great. So this has been fun. So at the end of all of my shows, I ask a couple, so people get a little bit sense of who you are. So I have 3 questions for you
Okay.
that are fun. The first question I want you to tell me is, as you said earlier, when I'm 29 years old, and if you told me I was here, I love asking the question because and you had mentioned you have a 16-year-old, and my kids are in that high school. If you look back at your 16-year-old self, there's
Mhm.
16-year-old Katie. If you look back, what's a trait that was in her that's still in you now? That's first
Mhm.
part. Second part is, what would be the most surprising thing if the 16-year-old you met you today? What would be the one thing that just was like, oh my goodness, I don't believe it? So first part, what's similar?
What's similar? I have always had a servant heart. So for me, I had a really challenging childhood. Both my parents are addicts. I raised my brother and sister, and so for me, it was always about, instead of focusing on my own woes, it was, how can I serve others? How can I
Right.
make it a better day? How can I create these magical moments? That kept me out of, being feeling victimized in life. And so that's something that I've carried on my whole life. I will give you the shirt off my back. I very much care about other people. I'm very others focused, maybe sometimes to a fault. So
Mhm.
I put myself way last on the priority list. But that's something that's totally carried from the age from super young, 16, until as a mother, I mean, look what I do. I create experiences for other people, right?
Exactly.
That's just who I am. It's innately who I am. What would be the most surprising? I'm an author. I failed every fifth grade spelling test. I hated writing. I loved reading, but if you had told me, my 16-year-old self, that I would have written a book, I would have laughed in your face and been like, yeah, right. I was also extremely shy. So if I had, my 16-year-old self look at me today, I'm a speaker and I go on stages and I inspire people and I write. I would never have guessed that. So who I've become, the career I've chosen, my 16-year-old self would have never imagined it. However, who I am at the core, and the type of career and what I focus on wouldn't be so much of a surprise.
That's great. Yeah. And the reason I asked that question, because having kids and, there's a lot of pressure on kids at that age to figure everything out. And I was like,
yeah,
you have no idea. My grandmother, my father's mother, she passed away probably 20 years ago. But she had said to me at one time, she said, I feel bad for you guys, because we were talking and she was, at that time in her 80s. And I said to her, oh, I feel sorry, you're getting old. And she goes, no, actually, I feel sorry for you. And I said, why do you feel sorry for me? She goes, because I think, finishing college. She says, because there's pressure on you to have everything figured out, your life figured out by the time you're 30. She goes, when your grandfather went to work, there was never talk about promotions until you were in your 30s, and you didn't become a manager until you were in your 40s. And if you became a partner in something, it wasn't to your say. She goes, this pressure. She goes, so I feel bad for you. And so I always wanted to try to make sure that I tell the kids that, for that, which leads me to the question, with your group, Brady Bunch-esque 7 kids, what's one thing that you would hope by them watching you, not you telling them, it's what they see you do day in and day out. What's the one thing you hope they would learn and put in their pocket to help them with their life?
Yeah, to serve before yourself, because you can't feel grief, you can't feel victimized, you can't feel down on yourself, and feel bad about life if you feel gratitude and you're serving someone else and helping someone else. So for me, the world it's about how can I help you? And so through my service to them, the way I serve them as their mom, I hope they take that and serve their children and their spouses and, everyone else in their world. That for me would be the one thing I'd hope they all take away from who I am.
Great. All right. 2 questions, because I had one, but I'm going to ask you 2. A book or a podcast or something that you're reading or seeing that's inspiring you that you would share to the audience. I always try to get recommendations to give them.
Yeah, so 2, The Power of One More by Ed Milet. I have read it like 5 times and listened to it and read it at the same time. So it's amazing. And then I would say The 8 Rules of Love by Jay Shetty right now is really cool. It's a really awesome book. He's a monk. Yeah, it's really awesome.
Yep, I know who Jay is. And then lastly, fun one. You are the world traveler. I laugh. I watch I'm like, where's Waldo? It's where's Katie? One place in the world that you haven't been to that you want to go to?
Probably Indonesia.
Mm.
I haven't been out there yet. I'd love to spend some time in Indonesia.
That's a good one. That's a first. Never got that. Usually get similar, different places.
I've been, you know what? Here's the thing. I've literally almost been everywhere in the world. Like
I know. That's why I asked you the question, because I know I sit there and watch you and I'm like, man, that's great. I'm excited for you and I'm happy for you, because you know what? You're enjoying your life. And that's really a great example also for your kids, is that, life has its ups and downs, but if we enjoy it, whether it, whatever we're going through, you got to sort of grin and get going, because you got to keep moving forward. That's what I always say, keep moving forward. So, all right. So first, again, thank you so much. Time just flies.
It flies when you're having fun.
I know. But it's been really great and I really appreciate it. So we talked about a lot of things. And so I like to wrap up all of my conversations with this. What's the one thing that you hope people listening, take away from our conversation? What's the one most important thing you think they need to take from this?
Besides buying my book?
Well, that goes without.
No, I would say the one thing that I would say you want to take away is that you're nothing without your customers. And so if you can't get on the customer bandwagon and create experiences for them, then, I mean, you're missing out. You're missing out on so much. So customers are first. The voice of the customer is so important, man or woman. So that to me would be the most important thing, is be genuine with them and realize how much impact they have, not just on your business. They feed, if you're a business owner, if you're a worker or you're an entrepreneur, but either way, that customer feeds how many employees you have. Say you have 10 and they have 3 people. Like, think about the magnitude of that. And so your customer is the only reason, A, you keep your business afloat, but B, families afloat. So get real and get intentional with serving your customers.
Great. So get Katie's book, CustomHER Experience, on Amazon, right? Amazon,
yeah.
Easy squeezy, go there. So where can they connect with you? Where do you hang out? What's your on social media? If somebody said, I want to talk to Katie, or I want to follow her and her adventures around the world, where can they connect with you?
Yeah, for sure. Instagram's totally, it's way more personal. So if you want to know what's going on in like Katie's life, definitely follow me on Instagram at Katie Mares. You can DM me. I'm always checking. I will never not respond. Facebook, I'm active on there. LinkedIn, professionally, you're going to get all the goods. You're going to get all the hard-hitting facts. And so, follow me on there as well. And actually, I'm going to be having a few courses coming out, so I'm really excited about that. So watch out for that. We talked about that foundation. So reach out to me, and I'm going to teach you how to create that 5 steps to a 5-star experience. And we're going to build on it from there with the CustomHER Experience. But you can email me too, katie@katiemares.com. I'm here to help. I'm here to serve. And I mean that genuinely. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to DM me or email me.
Great. And folks, I highly recommend you connect. Please connect, because she's a real deal. She will help you. And we'll load all of that stuff into the show notes. We'll have links to go buy the book, her website, everywhere else. We'll make sure that you guys, if you're interested in connecting, you can find them. So again, Katie, thank you so much for joining me. It's been great. Audience, you know the drill. Please make sure, if you found value in the conversation that Katie and I had today, make sure you share it out. I'm sure there's someone in your network that could benefit from what we were talking about. Please make sure you subscribe and like, all the rest of that. Put your comments in. I really appreciate you being here, because I know there's so many places for you to consume content, but the fact that you spent time with Katie and me today means the world. So as we say at the end of every show, you're in charge. So make sure that you understand that you have the power to make that change in your life. Keep moving forward. I'll see you next time on the show. Thanks again, Katie. Safe travels.
Thank you.
Hope to see you soon in person.
Yes.
Take care.
Okay. Ciao.